Today is 26th of September. Market opened slightly negative after the initial upward move. It lost its momentum and eventually trade off high down 1.83582. The fact that we have a rejection of the high with a long wick on increased volumes is likely to continue to move downwards. Support is actually at this level here, about 3,500. Resistance is actually at 3641. Now, mentioned previously that we are approaching the prior high made in 2018, and it is not likely to achieve break on first attempt. So I'd like to see the quality of the pullback here. If the retracement is dips, then the odds of attempt at this resistance is not likely to be anytime soon, and it may well just consolidate sideways. So this has been quite an impressive move. If you notice, it trade with daylight, and right now the daylight is closed, and with today's rejection of highs, you may expect it to actually move further downwards. Let's take a look at the US market. This is S&P 500. Managed to actually break new high, and this is important. Usually after a break, we like to see a follow through. The fact that it's currently trading a narrow range bar, it doesn't inspire confidence. We will have to see what happens. We have 2 more days to go. If it's still trade narrow range bar on low volume, then the odds of a pullback is high, and we like to see whether the support level can hold. If it's not able to hold, then the markets may just start in the trading range. See similar patterns in Nasdaq, just that it's much weaker. This happens to be the daily charts. After the cap up, you trade a series of small bar. So this is the weekly charts. Quite similar pattern. It's just that it's actually trading below the previous high. So again, if you'd like to see what happens end of this week, if you still trade a small range, then it's likely to actually pull back. This is the 10-year Treasury yield. Remain bearish. So if you notice, actually there was a decisive break of this lower channel line and followed by a throwback. This is a classic throwback. In fact, there was actually 2 attempts at this resistance level, and it failed quite miserably, and followed by another bounce. Again, more likely to continue to move downwards. Important thing is to see whether this level can support or not. But by and large, actually, with the interest rate cuts, further interest rate cuts, it will just weakens the yield. The Brent crude, as mentioned before, we have a bias towards the downside. Notice making successive lower high. Now this is a very important support level and was broken. As mentioned previously, the support at 70.71 is very important, especially $71. This has been tested on many occasions, and after the test we see a reactions, and this brings it all the way to the previous support, which is now acting as resistance, and it's more likely to actually move downwards, and we'd like to see whether the $71 support can hold. Now if it cannot hold, then that is likely to actually move downward quite aggressively. So if you notice, it has been actually trading at that level for a long while. So breaking these levels indicate a change in perceptions, and that is generally negative. I turn our attention to the local markets. This is Singtel. After a very nice raise up, if you notice, this is a extremely nice run ups followed by a shallow pullback. Now what happened was that actually in recent last few days, it actually had a deep retracement, and today we have a wide range reversal bar on increased volume. So the odds of it moving downwards is pretty high, and if we continue to do so, then the stock at best may just go sideways. Otherwise, it may just roll over. But I think at this point in time, we still do not have any evidence to actually suggest. We do have a big dipper setup. Still bar high here is at 332, but the fact we have a wide range reversal bar on increased volume, the odds of further downward move is actually high. Sets. Now, despite the fact they have a very strong run-ups, stock has been actually trading sideways. Prior to that, we can see very tight consolidation, but unfortunately, over the last couple of months, we see a bit of downward move, and at the support levels, it managed to actually hold. If you take a look at the moving average, it's actually converging, it's losing momentum. If you take a look at the bigger pictures, we have to be very realistic with our expectations. Despite it being very directional, it is approaching very obvious overhead resistance. So these are the high volume resistance level. So even if you break on the upside, position need to be very closely monitored. SIA, slightly clearer in terms of overhead resistance, the opposite end of this gap. At this point in time, we have a very tight pullback. We'd like to look for decisive break on increased volume above the high here of 665. Now remember, this opposite end of the gap is the resistance level, so we should be actually mindful when you approach this level, and perhaps this is a good target price. Hong Kong Yen. This is a reversing stocks. Now you actually met with resistance at this level here, and we usually do not like to see a wild swing. So notice it actually have very deep retracement and the swing is pretty big. So we'll prefer if we can normalize, get quiet, and eventually look for a break on the upside. But the fact that we have a very choppy move like this, it will probably take some time. If you notice, we have a series of long tail, so it does indicate that there is actually high resistance level. Mentions that actually with the interest rate cuts, prior to the interest rate cut in anticipation, rather, we see strong move in property stocks, and after the announcement of the 50 basis point cut, we see actually the stock actually sell on news. So we notice actually over here extension bar, so this is extremely negative. As mentioned before, it probably takes some time before the stock reverse, so it's still stuck within a downward bearish channel. Same for UOL. So again, stock like this actually have deep retracement after the announcements of the cut. So at best it may trade sideways, but certainly we do not like to see deep retracement. It's difficult to actually trade a stock like this. Capital Land Invest, again similar action but slightly better. You notice you have very big bar here on increased volume, and it's now just trading sideways. So again, if you can just quiet down, and perhaps may look for a break on the upside. SD Engineering. This stock is actually trading upper channel. Right, so it's actually trading the upper channels, and it's not able to actually hold above that, and it retrace. So you may well just start within this channel with very big swing. Let's take a look at the banks. This is DBS. Now it's noteworthy that actually there is a bearish gap. So with the bearish gap itself, it probably means that actually the stock at best will just go sideways. So you notice we have very strong run up and equally strong run down. So it's more likely to have a couple of swing, and we'd like to actually observe, see what happens. Now, if we trade below the 1326 MS, then the bet is off. We see that in the UOB in particular, the gap is very obvious. So this gap itself offers resistance. So again, we probably have to leave the stock alone. It will take some time for it to normalize. Same for OCBC. The move is slightly more muted, that's all. Right? Notice this is the only bank stock that doesn't open with a gap. But whatever, the retracement is actually quite deep. So it probably take some time before the dust gets settled, and before we can actually look for a meaningful setup. Sembcorp. This perhaps is today's best showing. So you notice actually it had a very nice run up here. A series of opening gap, and this pullback here is extremely low volume. It's a clear sign of strength, and it actually break with a gap again, follow through with another gap. And today still managed to actually make a new high. Can look for pullback, look for setups to go long. You just have to take note that this is an overhead resistance, perhaps at about $5.76.